Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about variation number 15 of Rachmaninoff's Corelli variations. Variation 14 was, as we discussed yesterday, the first variation in a new key, and that's the key of D flat major. Variation 15 is the last variation in a new key, still in D flat major. All the variations after this will resort to going back to D minor. So within the whole set of 20 variations, variation 14 and 15 are the only two in a different key, D flat major. Variation 14 also has this triplet that leads into variation 15. And variation 15, if you're looking at the score, is mainly lots of triplets in the left hand. So that just continues on. Let's talk about what we can expect in this variation. First, throughout this entire piece, we have had a lack of long, beautiful melodic lines that Rachmaninoff is known for. If you look at his music early on in his writing career, he's really known for these melodies that never stop. You never really come upon a cadence. He just makes the melody as long as possible. Not 4 measures, not 8 measures, sometimes not even 16 measures. Just really, really long melodies. We haven't had that quite yet in the Corelli variations. Everything is really short and segmented and just not very vocal in terms of like a long melodic line that a soprano might sing. This is the best chance we have at that until the very end of the piece. Let's look at this beautiful melody that he writes, and we'll see where the theme is within the melody. If I play just the right hand, it's really the first moment where this melody line breaks. It's really, really a long, uninterrupted line. It's also not the most interesting line. Like, it's not a melody that you would walk around whistling. But what Rachmaninoff is doing is simply outlining the standard Corelli theme that we've become so accustomed to. If I remind you, in the key of D flat, we should be expecting these staple notes. D flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, E flat, D flat, C. So just those 4 notes. And if we look at every single measure, there's going to be this wandering around one of those notes. So the first melodic note is D flat. Of course, we have that right away. The second one is C. We wander around it, but we finally settle on it. Then back to D flat. Then up to E flat. Then F. Back to E flat. And then back to D flat, but he has a different idea here. So you can see that he's simply outlining just the standard measure by measure structural melodic pitches from the key of D flat major, the Corelli theme. But he's constantly just wandering around. So it makes for a beautiful melody that's not a beautiful melody at the same time. It's really, really interesting. Where lots of the interest comes is right where I stopped. Melodically, you'll see in, what is this? Measure 7 and 8. You'll see that we have some natural signs. We are playing E flat, D flat, and F. Then we have D natural and E natural. That's really bizarre. Why would we have those notes? Well, Rachmaninoff has already set up the juxtaposition of D minor against D flat major. So the first three notes in D flat major are D flat, E flat, F. The first three notes in D minor are D natural, E natural, and F. So in a way, he's putting D flat against D minor, and we're not even aware of it. It's just ingrained within the melody. It's just really, really brilliant writing. The most important thing to talk about here, however, is the left hand. We have this triplet like rhythm that's reminiscent of, I don't know, like rowing or something. Just sitting on water. You know, you can think of some imagery like that. But you'll notice that there's stems going in all directions. If you look at each beat, we have stems down, which is going to make its own line. If I play that with the melody, it's just this beautiful counter melody, and once I start playing, I can't stop it until it finally resolves, because it's just a really long line, which we haven't had yet in the Corelli. The other thing is he fills out the harmonies with the top two fingers in my left hand, and then he supplies a bass note. And the bass note is always very interesting. The first measure, we always have this A flat. The second measure, we always have this F. And it's just makes for really interesting harmonies, because it's not what we're expecting. We don't expect an F minor chord or an A flat chord. Of course, that's not what we have, but because it's in the bass, it's what it tells our ear that maybe we're in F minor. So the choice of bass note really makes this writing complex. But you put all that together, and you just create this beautiful melody that just doesn't stop. Once I start playing, I have to play through the first half of the variation because it's so long, and I can't just stop the melody halfway. It hurts me too much. The second half of this variation is very much the same, but of course Rachmaninoff does a little bit of different things. Once we get about 6 or 7 measures into the second half, instead of decorating with D natural and E natural, we're actually going to be moving down and decorating with A natural and B natural. So it's the same exact music, but it's just shifted down, and it's going to allow Rachmaninoff to finally conclude the piece within D flat major. So let me play the whole variation for you. You're going to hear basically 2 long lines. The first half is one long melody, and then the second half is basically the same melody, harmonized slightly differently towards the end, but still one long line. So 2 long lines with some complex things in the left hand. So this is variation number 15, the most beautiful variation of the whole piece. So that concludes variation number 15. It's also the conclusion of the last 2 or 3 variations. We have that transition intermezzo, variation 14 in D flat, variation 15 in D flat. Every single variation from here on out will act as a grouping to get us to the big exciting finale, and all of those variations are back in D minor. So these 2 variations with the intermezzo are kind of its own slow movement and just a little light in the midst of all of this dark D minor music. So that's variation 15. It's beautiful. Come back tomorrow to talk about variation 16 and how crazy this ending of the piece gets. It's exciting music. So I will see you tomorrow to talk about that variation. We'll see you then.